In this video, I wanted to go over the homework for 4.2, which is right here. So the first one says, copy the congruent triangle shown at the right, and then label the vertices of your triangles so that triangle AMT is congruent to triangle CDN. And then they want to have you identify all pairs of congruent corresponding angles and corresponding sides. So this is actually a very big question. I think a lot of you probably just skipped this question. So let me do this and show you what you wanted to have done. So let's make this, let me just turn my pen on. Okay, let's make this a, whoops, hold on. Okay, this is going to be AMT, and then I'm going to make this CDM. I'm going to try to make it look like they're the same. So that looks good. Okay, so they told me that those are congruent. So therefore, here's your congruency statement. Use this statement now to identify the angles that are the same. So I'm going to decorate this. So according to this statement, A is going to equal C, and M, which is the second one, is going to equal the second letter in the second triangle, and therefore T has to equal N. Okay, so I'm looking at the statement and lining things up. So that means across from the single angle, yep, right here, is MT. That's the last pair in the first part of the triangle, congruency statement. And then you have across from the single here is DN, across from the double here, across from the double, and across from the triple, across from the triple. Okay, so that's how I'm going to label my triangle. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to go back to using the congruency statement. And I know that angle A is going to be congruent to angle C, right? So I'm going A with C. And then angle M is congruent with angle D. So again, M with D. And then lastly, angle T is congruent to angle N. T with N. Okay, so now let's try to do our segments that are equal. I'm not going to look at the triangle. I'm going to look at this statement. So AM and CD are going to be congruent. So AM is congruent to CD. Now these are both line segments, so put a little hashtag on top of that. So is that true? Do I have AM? Yep, that's the triple. And CD, that's the triple. Yep, so I did my illustrations correctly. Go back to the congruency statement and do the last pairing. So MT is congruent with the last pairing is CN. So you see what I grabbed? I grabbed the MT and the CN. Then let's look at the figure. So MT is going to be right here. Whoops, sorry. Which is the single, right? So that's your single. And that's going to go with DN, which is right here, also the signal. The single. So that makes sense. Okay, so let's come back up here. And we're going to do the last pairing. So go first and last, which is AT. So AT is congruent, and then do first and last for the last pairing to CN. And now let's look. Is that true? Did I pick the good ones? So AT is here for a double, and CN is here for a double, so we know we're good. Okie dokie. So that answers that first question. Now let's look at this question down here. In the diagram, triangle, okay, so TJM is congruent to PHS. So then they want us to complete the statements. Okay, before you try to complete the statement, this is what I want you to do. I want you to illustrate or annotate this diagram. So if you know that this statement is true, let's mark the angles. The first angle is T. We'll make T a single. P is the first angle over here. Now, the fact that I did that makes this 73 degrees. That's very important. Then I know that J, angle J, let's do that as a double, that's going to equal angle H, which is right here. Okay, and then angle M, which is down here, has to equal angle S, and that means that this is 48. Now, before you even start doing anything, shouldn't I be able to figure out what the other measurement is? So let's do that. So I know I have 180 degrees in a triangle. So I'm going to say in my calculator, 180 minus the 48 minus the 73. That's going to give me 59 degrees. I'm going to change to red. So that means this missing triangle is 59 degrees. So that's good to know. Okay, next thing we're going to do is now we're going to make the sides congruent. And we're going to put the markings on the sides. So when I do that, I'm going to look at the statement again. So TJ is going to be equal to PH. Well, they're across from the third angle, so I'm going to make that 3. I'm going to make that 3. Then I know that JM, which is the second pairing, so JM is equal to HS. That's across from the single, so I'm going to make that a single. And then the last one would be TM is congruent to PS. So that's across from the double. Make that a double, make that a double, and now I can make that 5 centimeters. Okay, so now I've done all this work over here. Now, and only now, do I want to go back and answer the questions. Okay, so this says angle P is congruent to what angle? So use your statement. It's congruent to angle T. And when I look at my diagram, I see they both have singles, so I know I'm correct. Then it says JM, the line segment, is congruent to which? Well, looking at my statement, HS, and make that a line segment. Now, this next one right here, this M is for measure. So they don't want to know which angle is congruent to. They want to know how big that angle is. So angle M, remember we had done our decorating or our annotating, I now know that that's 48 degrees. So when they have a measure like this, they want the degrees and not which one is congruent to. Okay, so the measure of angle P, that was 73, and that's what they want. Okay, now look at this. There's no marking on this. So they're asking you for the length of MT when there's no marking. So MT we figured out was the same as SP, so it's 5 centimeters. And now look what they did. They rearranged the letters in the second triangle. And they said HPS. Well, what did they do? They just switched the H and the P. So in the other triangle, just switch the J and the T. And you are all set. Okay? So I really want you to get in the habit of always annotating your figures. Okay? Do that first. It's kind of fun, for one. And for two, you think it through one time when you do it. Then you can just answer the questions as they come along. Okay? All right. Next question. Because this is just one page of homework, but it really was a lot of detail. So I hope if you didn't get that the first time, I'm hoping that you're making corrections to your homework so that your notes are complete. Okay, write a congruence statement for any figures that can be proved congruent. Explain your reasoning. Okay, the other day we talked about the reflexive property, and this is where this comes in. This piece right here isn't common to both, so therefore you can mark it because it's going to be the same length whether it's in triangle 1 or triangle 2. So EG equals itself. So I'm looking for side, 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 similarity here. Well, let me see. Should I say that yet? That's what's still coming. So let me erase that. We're going to talk about it in a different way. When I look at these triangles, I know that I have the following true. If this angle is in common here, then don't I know the third angle has to also be congruent? Therefore, I have all sides congruent and all angles congruent. So I can say that these two triangles, the top and the bottom, 1 and 2, are congruent. So I'm going to name this triangle on the top triangle. I'm going to go from the double GDE. So I went double right angle is congruent to double, which is E. Right angle is F and G. Okay, that's true. Now look at this guy. All the angles are the same. And in this first triangle, all of these sides are equal. In the second triangle, all of these sides are equal. But look at the hashtags. They are not equal to one another. So therefore, you can say that these are not congruent. Okay? And we have one more over here. Okay, so we have another reflexive piece right here. And if I know that this is a right angle here, because these are a linear pair, that's a right angle as well. And if this angle equals this, then by the third angle theorem, I know that that angle equals that. And therefore, I can say that these two triangles are congruent. So I'm going to write my congruency statement. I'm going to go double right single, double right single. Okay, so that's done too. Okay, now they want you to find the value of x. So we're not doing any more congruency statements, but what can we say? Well, I see the markings are such that that's 65. That means this is 65. So what do you know about the two acute angles in a right triangle? Aren't they complementary? And you should say yes. So if you take 90 minus 65, and that's going to be 5, that's going to be 25. So this missing angle, which was the x angle right here, is going to be 25 degrees. You could have also said in a triangle you have 180, and you could have said 180 minus 90, which is 90, minus 65, still gives you 25. Okay? So either use the fact that the two acute angles, so which are the acute angles? This one and this one, in a right triangle, those two acute angles are always going to be complementary, which means sums to 90, or you can say the three angles in a triangle always sum to 180. Either way, you'll get 25 for an answer. Okay, look at the markings and fill things in. So if this is 70 right here, then that means that this is 70. And if that's 60, that means that this is 60. So let's go ahead and find the other angle. So if I know I have a 60 and a 70, that's 130. So that means this top angle has to be 50, which means that this angle has to be 50. Get an equation. 50 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 25. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Getting equations is critical to being able to solve these things. Okay, given, so ABC is congruent to DEF. Find the values of x and y. Okay, so let's mark things. A is 87. I'm making that a single. That means that D, oh, look at this. This is 87. Okay, right away I have an equation. Let's go ahead and solve that. 5x plus 2 equals 87. Subtract 2, subtract 2. 5x equals 85. Divide by 5, divide by 5. And if you put 5 into 85, it goes one time with 3 left over. So you should be getting x equals 17. Whoops, not 15. X equals 17. Okay, so that's one of the questions. Now let's keep going, do our markings. Okay, here's another angle. The other angle is 3y. What angle is that? So let's see. Angle C equals angle F. Okay, so let's make that a double. This equals angle F. Well, can I figure out what that angle is? I think I can. Because what does angle, angle B is 42, right? Because E equals B. So let's get the missing angle. So 180 minus the 42, and then minus the 87 gives me a remaining angle of 51 degrees. So this angle F is 51 degrees. Okay? So angle C is also 51 degrees. So let's set up an equation. Here it comes. 51 equals 3y. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And if you did that division, you would say 3 goes into 5 once with 2 left over. 3 goes into 21 7 times. So y is also 17. Okay, and we're done. So that was the homework. I hope you followed along and made changes to your homework as needed. Okay, what we're going to do next is these notes. So this should be down a little bit further. So I'm going to write this right here. 4.4, prove triangles congruent by side, side, side. Okay, so side, side, side congruence postulate states that if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to the 3 sides of a second triangle, then the 2 triangles are congruent. So that means that even if you have no information about their angles, if you know the sides are equal, you know the triangles are congruent. Okay, that's how this is a little bit different, because the first 2 sections you had to know that everything was equal in order to say the triangles were congruent. Now we're saying if you have 3 equal sides between the 2 triangles, they are congruent. Okay, so let's decide whether the congruent statement is true. Okay, so this is the congruent statement right here. So you want to recognize that that's what this is, because I'm going to ask you sometimes to give that to me. So it says DFG is congruent to HJK. So I'm just kind of trying to follow along. If I do DFG, I went up the 2 and down the 3. HJK also goes up the 2 and down the 3. So that's a true statement. With the markings that I see in the triangle, I can say that this is true. Okay, let's go to the next one. So ACB, okay, that's the top, has to be congruent to CAD. All right, let's match things up. So AC is 9, and CA is also 9. Okay, so far that's true. Let's keep going. Okay, let's check CB. CB is 7, and AD is also 7. Okay, so we're 2 for 2. Okay, then the last one to check is AB, so first and last. So AB, that's 3, and CD, that's 4. Up, nope, not true. Okay, those 2 pieces were not equal, so you don't have 3 equal sides between the 2 triangles. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, I can see all the markings are good. Let's make sure they labeled it correctly. Okay, QPT. So they went down the 2 and then down the 3. Okay, R, S, T. Down the 2 and down the 3. So yes, this is true. Okay, here comes some more. Tell whether the angles or sides are corresponding angles, corresponding sides, or neither. Okay, so let me tell you something. If you have a single, do you see how all these angles are equal? So if I have that scenario, let's see and look. We'll see if these match up. Okay, C and L. C is double, L is W, is double. So this is a corresponding angle. Do we go quote unquote corresponding angle CA? Okay, AC and JK. Okay, so what do I know about this? Well, I can write a congruency statement based on what? Let me think about this. Okay, so AC and JK. So nothing is marked right now. So what's your feeling about that? Do you think you can say the corresponding? Well, let's just say they're both across from the single, right? They're both across from the single. So we can call them corresponding. Actually, could we say anything? So we don't know. Because this is based all on the fact that you have equal angles, we cannot stretch to make the sides opposite them be equal. So I would say this is a neither. Okay, what about BC and KL? So BC and KL. So I said AC, and JK. Okay, so let me rephrase that. What they're saying to us here is when you look at AC is across from a single, and JK is across from a double. Do you see that? So they are going to be not congruent. So this is neither. But BC and KL, BC is across from a triple, and KL is also across from the triple. So they're going to be corresponding sides. And then angle B, which is a single, and angle L, which is a double, is also going to be neither. Okay, hope I didn't confuse you on that. Okay, last question in this note section. It says, decide whether the congruent statement is true. Explain your reasoning. Okay, so I'm looking at the figure. I see that we have potentially congruent shapes because everything's marked by side, side, side. But let's figure out if the statement's true. So RST goes down the double and then down the triple. So this was their first move, and then this is the second move. TQP goes down the single and then down the double. So this is no. Okay? So no, I would say did not match sides correctly. So could you have done it correctly? Yes. If I would have said triangle SRT is congruent to triangle QPT, that would have done it. So this is true. Okay? Okay, next one. So here's your reflexive piece. This is equal to itself. So it's an equal part of both triangles. So ABD, they went down the single and then down the double. CDB, they went down the single and then down the triple. So this is a no. Okay, so they did not match this correctly. Let me just make sure. Oh, here, I lost my mind. Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, let me look at the first one again. ABD. I went the wrong way. That was me. Down the single, and then to D is down the triple. Okay, so they do match up. So this is a yes. They matched it up correctly. Okay, last one. Here's the reflexive piece again. Let's see if they labeled this correctly. DEF, let me make sure I do it correctly. Down the single, down the double, down the single. Okay, DG, down the double, F, down the single. Yep, this is also a yes. Okay, so you have side, side, side congruency for both of those. And when I did this one, that made it side, side, side congruency. Okay, now your job for homework is to do this. See if you can use side, side, side. So you have to have equal sides to prove these triangles congruent. So you have how many? You have 10 problems. If so if you can prove that they're congruent, you're going to add letters to the vertices and write a congruency statement. If not, state not enough information. Okay, I will tell you that of these 10, 4 are not enough info. Okay, so now you do the rest. So figure out which 4 are not enough info, and then no letters on those vertices, but the ones that are enough info for side, side, side congruency, write letters on the vertices, and then also write the congruency statement correctly. Okay, that's your mission. Thank you for listening.